I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Jay Norman.
Most of the time, brands position themselves when working with talent as being this thing about me. Talk about how great my stuff is. When really it's like, what's the story we're telling about the artist and the thing that they create in the world in which your brand exists?
Jay Norman is a creative leader, marketer, and co-founder with a 15-plus year business commitment to designing campaigns, merging culture, and human emotional experiences. Currently serving as the global head of music marketing at Spotify, Jay has worked with several international brands, organizations, and artists, creating genre-bending, culturally impactful work. Within his agency career, he has led campaigns and content for brands such as Johnson & Johnson, Stellantis, Unilever, JBL, Harman Kardon, McDonald's, and more. The award-winning content shop he co-founded, Verse and Hook, has crafted work on brands like Pepsi and Kingsford and had an integral role in the composition of campaigns and media featuring artists and musicians in advertising for brands like Jeep Bacardi, PayPal, NFL, and ESPN. My interview with Jay Norman is coming right up. But first,
you may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Ian Truscott hosts a great podcast called Rockstar CMO. Ian, tell us what these fine folks will get when they listen.
Well, Jason, I'm no rock star, but I've picked up a thing or two over the last 20 years on my tour from sysadmin to CMO, and each week I chat with the true rock stars, my fabulous guests and chums, and share what we call marketing street knowledge to inspire our listeners in a rock star.
Amazing. Where can people subscribe?
Go to rockstarcmo.com, find the show at marketingpodcast.net, or search for Rockstar CMO FM wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard him. Go subscribe. You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Jeff Livingston and Greg Verdino host a great podcast called No Brainer, an AI podcast for marketers. That's useful. Gentlemen, tell us what listeners will get out of the show.
We discuss all the latest developments that are happening in marketing and AI, particularly the news that's impacting us on our day-to-day basis.
And we break it down and we help marketers see through the hype cycle, and we analyze what's happening through the lens of a couple of guys who have been around in the marketing space for a while.
Then we do a no-brainer and a brainer, 2 takeaways for you to walk off and implement in your daily marketing life.
And then we help you make sense of how to implement it by getting practical and helping brands and agencies think about how to implement AI in their organizations to benefit their companies and their customers.
Awesome. And where can people subscribe?
Find us at nobrainerpodcast.com. Of course, you can find us at marketingpodcasts.net and look for No Brainer any place you listen to your podcasts.
You heard him. Go subscribe.
Jay Norman, welcome to On Brand.
Honored to be here. Good to talk to you.
You know, I feel like when I'm talking with someone from Spotify, that my great concern is that, you know, you have insight into the fact that I listen to yacht rock every night while I make dinner, and that I've been working heads down on projects listening to the Oppenheimer score all week. So I'm afraid that my listening habits are exposed.
Your love of Vampire Weekend is very well known to us at Spotify.
Well, that's impressive. All right. Well, it's like being able to see through someone when you see their musical interests. But I think that's what's a really interesting part about the Spotify brand, that I'm trying to think of brands that engage us as listeners and that are really our point of entry for so much. And that's really the role that the Spotify brand plays. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
You know, it's interesting. I think something that I've learned in my role in Spotify, I've been here now 3 years, has just been how much you can kind of gather about a person based upon what they listen to. You know, it is interesting that we go through this exercise every year during Wrapped, kind of our like annual end of the year exercise that we kind of our give back to all the great fans that make what we do possible at Spotify. And I think what's most interesting is the excitement you see and people just being able to reflect that identity in real life, share that identity with their friends. This is the stuff that I listen to all year that almost is a part of who I am. And that relationship that we have with the media we consume, and most specifically the music we love, I think is a great window into how amazing songwriting and amazing musicality can do wonders for us as people.
That's such a good point. I'm glad you brought up the Wrapped at year's end, because what a unique brand touch point, but a way of packaging all of that up. I feel like right as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that I've then taken that and then shared it in some social capacity in the years past. So how long has Spotify been doing that? Is it because I feel like it's been years now, several.
It's been years now. This is we've done it quite a few times now, and I think the big thing out of that process, because it's a lot of work. I mean, we start on Wrapped in, like, I don't know, May, right? For
Wow.
it to be ready by November. How do we visualize that data? How do we make it an interesting experience to go through? Because it's not like a real quick thing at the end of the day. It's
No.
several slides to go through. You kind of look at different visualizations of your listening, and we try to make it interesting and different every year. We have a great team on the brand and creative team. We have great strategists, great music partners who all kind of work to make that real. Our data analytics team, I could name a whole group of folks that spend time on this every year. And it's funny, you mentioned it, like, what a unique brand touch point, because I can't think of another brand that has a non-marketing asset that does that much work for them every year, right? This isn't
Yeah.
a campaign. This is literally a reflection of your own engagement with our platform that we just visualize for you at the end of the year every year. And for that to have so much brand equity now in the minds of so many people, I think is a real testament to what people really get from the listening experience, and what they really care about in terms of, like, their fandom, which I enjoy to be a part of every year.
Well, you connected some important dots there too. You mentioned that, I mean, ultimately, this is data that you're making something with, but the data is really only half of the equation there, because there's any number of ways to look at data these days. But when you make it meaningful for people, like you said, visualizing it in the slides, it really, like you said, yeah, for it being a non-marketing touch point, it is carrying a lot of water for the brand. So I really didn't come into the interview thinking about talking about Wrapped, but it's really a very unique aspect of the Spotify brand.
Yeah, that team does an incredible job every year. I wish I could take credit for Wrapped. Um, I really do, but no, I mean, like, we took home a gold can lion this year for the Wrapped experience from 2022, and I think that just goes to show that, like, a non-marketing asset having that much of, like, a a true integration in kind of the cultural zeitgeist is something that is really a testament to how strong the brand is in the marketplace right now.
Well, speaking of the cultural zeitgeist and brands in the marketplace, uh, talk a bit about the work for the content shop that you co-founded. And speaking of dot connecting, it's certainly can be tricky when you talk about artists and musicians and brands. How do you cohesively bring those worlds together in a way that's a win-win for everyone?
I mean, that's a great question. Honestly, the intersection between musicianship and artistry and then brand building is one that usually lives in endorsement, right? It's a brand who
Yeah.
wants to feign some level of your community's engagement from you to them. And what I found in being a musician myself, I was, signed to Sony BMG as a music producer and a songwriter for years, and um, got to experience what it's like to be a musician in the business for a while. And we started Versus Hook originally as a sync licensing company, just to help the guys we knew who were still struggling in those artist writing camps for big artists and making 2%, on a record that never really comes out, make real money. And so through that process, we were like, well, can we do the whole process soup to nuts? Can we make the entire production ourselves? We could. And so that turned into, a year-long relationship with PepsiCo, some things we've done with Rockstar Energy, some projects we've done with other brands. And we won Effies, we won Cannes Lion, just in trying to build partnerships between artists and the projects that are building the brands, instead of it being endorsements with these artists, and that's artists of all kinds. There's painters, musicians, dancers. We found a lot of success in doing that. And even some legacy artists. One of the things we did with Pepsi was with Aretha Franklin's estate and managing that from kind of a posthumous standpoint with them and Rhino Records, and making the process easy for Pepsi was something that we really do hang our hats on. That was a great experience for us. And so, trying to find opportunities for brands to walk hand in hand with an artist was our real goal in building Versa Hook. And I think in some small way we accomplished that.
I love that, and especially because I feel like, you said most of the time this looks like an endorsement. That's a kind of an easy legacy category to put that in. But I think that the opportunity is so much greater in a lot of ways. When you talk about co-creating and things like that, but the how of that becomes really tricky really fast, and it almost seems like you would probably need a navigator almost with some of that insight of what's happening on both sides of the table to kind of make heads or tails of it.
Yeah. I think that relationship when it comes to brands and artists really all comes down to storytelling. Most of the time, brands position themselves when working with talent as, be in this thing about me. Talk about how great my stuff is. It almost reminds you of old Ogilvy car ads where they just tell you how great the Volkswagen is. It's like you're reading an old timey ad. Look at I'm insert famous artist name here, and this is this great thing that I'm a part of. Or look at my face, I'm experiencing this great time, and the brand is in the background. When really it's like, what's the story we're telling about the artist and the thing that they create in the world in which your brand exists? And if you can do that in a way that's interesting, then you win. I think Nike does a great job with that, with athleticism. It's not always like whether or not we're doing something with the artist or the athlete, and the athlete's like, go buy some Nikes. It's more or less like, hey, I'm a great athlete and I happen to be wearing Nikes in this universe where wearing Nikes means something to people. And then they create different instances of those things, whether that's with actual talent or with the actors that kind of portray those stories. And I think it's an interesting paradigm to try to shift on a regular basis, where it's like, I'm not breaking that fourth wall. That this guy plays for the Lakers, and you've seen him wear different kinds of shoes. I'm not trying to sell you on he's this exclusive dude. I'm more or less trying to sell you on the fact that you can relate to this in a way that's interesting. And I think with music, if you listen to my music, then you kind of feign a similar experience from that. Because if I see you doing what you love in the space where this brand exists and the story for this brand exists, and it feels organic, I think you can get a lot out of that. So that to me is the thing. Don't make it an endorsement. Make it a story that I can see myself in. I think you win.
On Brand, we'll be right back after this.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right. Over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs. Also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn Ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
Support for On Brand and all shows on the Marketing Podcast Network is provided by ActiveCampaign. With ActiveCampaign, you can create and send email campaigns, manage your leads and customers, create landing pages, set up automated workflows, and track your results all in one approachable platform. It's no wonder ActiveCampaign has over 185,000 happy customers across the globe, such as the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. They integrate Salesforce with ActiveCampaign to automate a thank you email to all those who visit the museum, and in doing so, share a form to gather their feedback. That then automatically triggers follow-up messages based on the feedback they receive, including returning to the museum for another visit. For a limited time, ActiveCampaign is offering on-brand listeners a chance to double your contacts for free when you sign up at activecampaign.com/activate. That means if your email list has 10,000 contacts, you only need to pay for 5,000. Or you can pay for the 10,000 and get an extra 10,000 contacts totally free. Go to activecampaign.com/activate to sign up today. That's activecampaign.com/activate. Terms and conditions apply. Now, back to the show. I love that point about making it a story that you can see yourself in. And the Nike example is a great one. And I think sometimes I feel like Nike is such a great aspirational brand, but I think they almost sometimes make it look so easy that
Right.
that people can like look from afar and think, oh, I'll just drop the words out of my logo and do a swoosh thing. And it's like you don't get what all the years behind that. And I think the same thing with the unique relationships that they've built, because it's kind of the antithesis of, like you said, the Ogilvy. I love the come be in a thing about me. How do you start that relationship of between artist and brand?
I think you have to start from what's your story. Instead of me assuming that because you have a million people who follow you on Instagram, or you have, a bunch of people who love the way you play sports, or there are 10 million people who watched American Idol last year and you were one of the top 5. Like, what about you makes you interesting outside of that? And how can I embed that story into something that aligns holistically with my brand? I think the most successful spots, the most successful brand to artist relationships do that well. And then the better you get at it, the better the talent gets at doing that themselves. We're starting to see so many talented people and actors start to own small agencies because they've figured out what people like about them, and they just go and do that. Look at Ryan Reynolds, right? Like, the Ryan Reynolds effect is so real, but like, he's figured out that this really sarcastic, almost like Uber dude vibe that he puts off works well. Look at Shaquille O'Neal and all the things that he's been able to do. Look at Dwayne Johnson and all the things he's been able to do in the space. I think if you've done a good enough job taking Dwayne Johnson's hero story, if you take a good enough job of taking Shaq's championship journey or Ryan Reynolds' sarcasm into account, you can then add that into what your brand's trying to do and create new and interesting ways to speak to consumers that feel like talking to someone you've talked to for 20 years because you've been watching their media or looking at them play sports for 20 years. And so how can you do that with artists? It's like, what is about the artist's story and their journey to me knowing who they are that makes them interesting to me? And does my brand align with that? Shaq can't do stuff for everybody, but if he's going to do something for Icy Hot, that makes sense. He's an athlete. Like
Yeah.
that aligns, right? But Shaq doing something for some random thing. Like I think he's really good at picking those stories. But I mean, he knows himself better than anybody else, right? So, I think that's really it. Like getting to the bottom of why we find the person interesting or their music interesting or who they are, and then aligning that properly with the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. So, talk a bit about your work as global head of music marketing at Spotify. First of all, what does the global head of marketing at Spotify do?
That's funny. Like you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised at how many people think that I can like make them Beyonce tomorrow. That's what people think it is. Like I
Well,
get emails from.
that was my hope. I guess it's not going to happen.
No, you know, my corner of the Spotify universe is really about positioning artists' music, the things they create, to the masses via our marketing channels. To keep it very simple, right? And so, marketing channels do not include playlist brands. Those are handled mostly by editorial, even though when we market the editorial brands, we then are responsible for how that's communicated, right? And so, what it really looks like in practice, the billboards you see in Times Square are managed and operated by my team, the media team, and some of our brand creative. Some of the spots on social media that you see as it pertains to new artist releases or some of our programs like Radar come through my team. And then most of the events that you see from Spotify, especially ones that are artist centric, like if you go to a big festival and there's an experience based around one of our activations, or if there's something around a new artist release that happens to have like a listening experience, my team tends to do that. And so we're really responsible for making sure you know what's hot within the Spotify universe, and you get to experience that and engage with that part of our brand as in as many valuable engagement points as possible. That's what my team is really about.
So, and I would say that that's probably a moving target as well, because like any digital ecosystem, we get used to what it looks like. What have you observed in how to? I mean, because again, the other side of the wrapped piece is we kind of know what we know, and there's some stuff, like I mentioned at the top of the show, that we listen to a lot because that's what we listen to. So, how do you get in front of some of those online behaviors and encourage new music discovery?
The discovery challenge is a real one for us because as a brand, I think we've gotten to kind of a bifurcated space between what our algorithm does for us, which I think is one of the best pieces of machine learning in practical use in the world, right? Like
Yeah.
Amazon and us really do it the best. And I think we deliver that kind of discoverability quite a bit. I think on the opposite end, the human touch, which is a little more challenging, is what I've learned more about. What about our editorial? What about our programming? What about our marketing touch points drives new users and new listens? And what I'm finding is it's really about relating something that you already like to other things that are kind of in line with that. And that seems like table stakes, but it's more complicated than I think a lot of people realize. Um, just because somebody likes, let's say, country music doesn't mean that there isn't overlap with traditional Mexican or regional Mexican music. And just because you like regional Mexican music doesn't mean that you listen to Spanish speaking music. You might like other things along the lines of more of the sad side of the genre, and maybe you would really like R&B. And so for
Yeah.
us, it's about trying to find intersections of these different genres because genre is our best tool in explaining what people like in terms of listening, and then trying to cross-reference that with user behaviors. What beyond listening, what other things do you like? And so, as a marketing team, part of our job is like, okay, is fashion one of those intersections? Sports is one of those intersections. Gaming is one of those intersections where different types of listeners come together under the roof, under the umbrella of another thing they like, and can we then insert our brand as a curator of what that vibe could be like in line with
Right.
what they already listen to, right? And so that's been a part of that process from the human touch side. And then, of course, we try to market the hell out of what we've been able to do from the machine learning algorithmic side as experience, not as like the creepy AI that we're starting to see pop up in places.
Yeah.
We're trying to go, hey, this is cool. Like, we saw you listen to this yesterday, or even in some of our other experiences that you may have taken part of in Spotify. It's like, let us suggest this thing to you because you seem to like this holistically, and so that's what we've been trying to implement.
Awesome. Well, I love that. I love the playlists curated, and I love just going down the rabbit holes of what is it, cooking and dining. That's I always try to pick something interesting and on theme for the dinner that I'm making for the family. They always make fun of me for what you've got it on feel good dinner again, because that's one of my go-tos. But I am smiling as I talk about all of these different playlists, but it is also time for me to ask you, Jay, for a brand that has made you smile recently.
Honestly, and this is going to sound, I don't know, this is going to sound pretty expected, but this whole Barbie mania thing is
Yes.
making me completely giddy about the state of things, because I'm watching a brand with an insurmountable amount of marketing dollars in the market. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of companies that are throwing like $150 million like at like marketing a movie. Um,
Right.
but what I'm loving about it is I think in most cases, a brand oversaturating themselves in any short period of time usually would backfire. It's like, oh, we have a partnership with literally everyone. I mean, literally Zara, The Gap,
Uh-huh.
rollerblades companies, outdoor activations, movie theater, anything you can imagine. I'm surprised they didn't have pink popcorn at the movie theater, right? But what I love about it is that it reminds us that nostalgia isn't just a monster for trying to market something from the past.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can use what people see themselves in as an opportunity to find what parts of the market are actually viable for you to continue to grow in. And I think Mattel did a great job again. Okay, we sell t-shirts all the time. We do all this stuff all the time, but we've got this movie to reinvigorate a brand new audience. Let's just saturate and see what sticks. Like, are they going to end up blowing some of that money? Yeah, for sure. Like, there's no way the ROI on that's going to be that high. But what they'll find in doing this is maybe Hot Wheels is not where I should spend my money. Maybe the Gap is not. Maybe clothes don't work for us as much. Did the dolls kick up in sales during this time period? What is the long tail off from this big marketing spend? Like, does it sustain for a year? What do we have to do to maintain interest in the brand outside of the movie? Does the movie resell? I love the social kind of experimentation that's happening with a brand that can afford to do it. I think brands can look at this and go, okay, how can we test where we
Yeah.
stand with our audience? They were able to do it because they had a bunch of money, but are there scaled down versions of that we can do centered around a piece of media that has already garnered interest? It just makes me want to think that Barbie has the marketing world humming.
Yes.
Out of everything that could have done it, it's Barbie dolls. But that makes me chuckle.
I love it. Making me smile again. Learn from Barbie brands. We can do this. Jay, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Honestly, these days I stay off of the social media stuff, but I do have a LinkedIn. Just linkedin.com/jnorm. I exist there. And if you want to talk to me or pick my brain about anything, that's the best place to do it. I am a viewer of social media, not a participant anymore. For real, it's too much
Increasingly
for me.
wise.
Right.
Awesome. Well, we will link up to that in our show notes, which folks can always find at onbrandpodcast.com. Jay Norman, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thanks, Nick. Great talking to you.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.